Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With episode 788 of your favorite professional wrestling podcast. Man, we are really close to hitting 1,000 episodes of this show. It is Thursday. You know exactly what that means. We are here to break down everything that happened over the last week across NXT and AEW. We have an absolute ton to go over before this show is out, and we have a couple additional items to discuss, particularly when it comes to AEW as we get into the show. So let's not waste any time off the top. Allow the Silver King to remind you, as he usually does, that the Getting Over Wrestling podcast
is all about Defy.
You know the drill. Head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read that live right here on the show. Also, please do not forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast. You can find us on Twitter, Blue Sky, and YouTube. On the first two, you get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights sent directly to you. Plenty of other good stuff. You can send in questions and comments for the show. When you subscribe on YouTube, you can listen to full-length audio episodes and watch full-length video interviews. Again, please find us on social media at Getting Overcast. Now, like I said, we got a ton to discuss. We usually start with NXT, then we move over to AEW.
But I'm afraid I've got some news.
And there's a few interesting items that we're going to touch here at the start of the show. And then once we get past our AEW breakdown, we're going to discuss ratings for Dynamite on September 3rd, which is not a conversation that we've been having recently, largely because things have been stagnant for both NXT and AEW. There really hasn't been that much to discuss. Well, this show is getting taped late on Thursday, and yeah, there's something to discuss when it comes to AEW. But for the news of the week, I completely forgot to mention this on Tuesday, and I really feel bad about it. But Diamond Dallas Page was actually hospitalized with atrial fibrillation recently. And while that on its own may not be something that we would initially bring up on the show, because a lot of people deal with health problems a lot of the time, you know, DDP, what he has done for professional wrestling, more specifically, what he's done for professional wrestlers over the last, decade? I want to say maybe 15 years, but definitely the last decade. I mean, the guy's almost like a guardian angel for some of these dudes. So I just kind of wanted to take a moment. He's also beyond that. I've met him 2 or 3 different times. Once at, I want to say it was WrestleMania 33 in Orlando. Couldn't be a sweeter, nicer guy, generous with his time. I wasn't there in a media capacity. I saw him as a fan. Hey, DDP, can I bend your ear a little bit? We ended up having like 12, 13-minute conversation. It's just such a super sweet dude. So good to the people around him. So I wanted to take a moment here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. I doubt I'll reach him, but I just want to wish him the best. And I hope his recovery from this issue is speedy and he can get back to taking care of himself and taking care of all the others he's helped over the last, again, decade plus. Regarding AEW, there were a couple big news items that dropped on Wednesday before Dynamite. The first, finally, AEW pay-per-views will be available on HBO Max as soon as All Out in a couple weeks' time. Now, that is a massive positive for, I would say, many of you, from the standpoint that AEW has continued to shift around its providers and where it will allow to actually, air the pay-per-view, where you can actually buy it from. Internationally, it's been super easy, I believe. You sign up for Triller and you just pay whatever you pay. It's a lower cost and you get the show and it's easy. But I know that personally, I've bought shows on Bleacher Report and payperview.com, Triller, I think at one point, Amazon. Like, it's been like 4 different places. There's no catalog of them really that I've been able to maintain. It's been super frustrating for me, so I assume it's been frustrating for some of you. So the fact that you're going to be able to buy them on HBO Max and it's going to be in the same spot where you can watch their shows, that is hugely positive. And it's something that really was supposed to happen, I feel like 6 months ago or so. What was less inviting is the dollar amount that was part of this, promoted release. So my hope, and I think the thought of many, was that if you're an HBO Max subscriber and you pay anywhere between $10 and $17 a month. 10 is for the ad version. I want to say 17 is for like the ad-free 4K version, which is what Silver King has. The hope was, well, okay, $20, $25, maybe $30 additional, for the pay-per-view per month. So that way you're getting a little bit of a discount. There's an incentive to subscribe, so on and so forth. They're charging $39.99. So even if you have your base level HBO Max subscription, you're spending $50 a month, the exact same number that you were paying previously. Now, yeah, you do get extra content. You get some of the HBO, the Discover stuff, and that is hugely positive. There's no question about it. But that is really not a substantial enough discount to like get people who otherwise wouldn't pay $50 a month to start paying $50 a month. So I was hugely disappointed with that. Many of you were as well. I got a number of notices about it. There's been a lot of conversation recently about VPNs and the way you can access wrestling with one. I'm not against promoting that, but frankly, we are a free show. We're an ad-free show. I want to get paid if we're going to be promoting something like that. So what I will tell all of you is the Getting Over Wrestling podcast is currently working a deal to have an official VPN sponsor that would include promotions and discounts and all that type of stuff. And if you become interested in such a product, you will be able to use it not just for WWE, but also for AEW. The other note when it comes to All Out is that the show start got moved up a few hours. I want to say it is now 3 p.m. Eastern in the United States. And, given the way WWE WrestlePalooza is getting loaded up, that makes all the sense in the world. It's also a show in Canada, which I feel like should be a little bit less of an issue given the fact that Saturday is a college football day here in the United States. I'm not saying Canadians don't watch American college football, but I would presume that the proportion is a lot smaller, by comparison. So I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue moving the time. I think it was a really smart move by AEW doing it 2 weeks before the show. Not a smart move. I don't know why they didn't do this a month ago, but it seemed like they wanted it to coincide with the HBO Max announcement. So, say what you want to say about that. But I want to clarify something because, a real prominent show, I don't want to call the person a reporter, a real prominent show came out and said WWE is loading up WrestlePalooza because they want to bury AEW All Out.
No.
That, frankly, could not be further from WWE's mind. It is, I don't want to say a happy coincidence because I'm sure they picked that day, at least in part because AEW was running that day, but they picked September 20th in coordination with ESPN because they are debuting a brand new show on a brand new streamer, kicking off a brand new agreement. The reason why WrestlePalooza is getting so loaded up is primarily and almost entirely 85 to 90% of the reason because they want a smash debut on ESPN. And it doesn't take a genius to know that, even though we confirmed it with actual sources. It doesn't take a genius to know that because WWE did it for the debut on Fox. And they did it for the debut on Netflix. And I believe the WrestleMania, it was WrestleMania when they debuted on Peacock, so they didn't have to load it up anymore. But they went all out, pun not intended, for that show, that WrestleMania, the promotion around it, moving from the WWE network, all that type of stuff. So are they happy that they're putting on a major, huge show against AEW All Out and that it necessitated them moving that show? They absolutely are. I guarantee it. No one's told me that, but let's just, know what facts are, right? Sure, WWE does want to bury AEW and they want no one to watch AEW All Out. Of course. That is not why WrestlePalooza is getting loaded up. It is entirely, almost entirely, 85, 90% of the reason is because of ESPN. Don't let people lie to you, tell you otherwise, wedge drive between these companies, stoke more tribalism. It's frankly ridiculous. All right, let's go into our full breakdowns of NXT and AEW this week. As always, there are timestamps in the episode description, so you can skip around if you want, but I truly hope you listen to the entire show. Though I will be honest, given my thoughts on Dynamite this week, you may say, Silver King, you're talking about not being tribal, but you really didn't like AEW, did you? And, I've been praising them for their TV shows, maybe not over the last couple of weeks, but over the last couple of months, I've been enjoying Dynamite so much more than I have been before. This week across AEW TV was rough, and NXT was a very good show, but certainly not one of their great shows either. So plenty of praise and criticism on the way right now, but I would be remiss if I did not remind you that here at Getting Over,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well, because for $5 a month, $50 for the entire year, you can become an official Getting Over head. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover, sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Again, that is buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Kicking it off with NXT. Hank and Tank both gassed up and mended fences temporarily between Obafemi and Ricky Saints. They were actually funnier here than they usually are. Oba and Ricky then agreed that they needed to lock in and worry about themselves. DarkState later got one of their promo packages explaining how Osiris Griffin got screwed by the NFL, Cutler James got embarrassed by Bubba Ray Dudley on LFG, Saquon Sugars got held down in the Indies for being a wild card, couldn't make it to WWE, and Dion Lennox was told in WWE, keep your head down, and that didn't do anything for him. He just got pushed around by veterans. Clips of them working as security were shown, with Sugars explaining that they played the game because so many superstars who came before them did the same thing. We also saw clips of LA Knight, Sheamus, a lot of others. They said they had no reason to wait around when they could just go and take what they wanted, which is why they formed DarkState. No joke, this was the best DarkState promo segment, not by miles, by light years. It finally clicked for all of them. Why WWE waited so long to go deeper into their backgrounds and use their lore as their individual motivation, I have no idea. It brought so much reality to the faction, as did the clips of all of them working security. It just gave us further credence to their words. Even Cutler was good here. He didn't joke around like he has been recently, even though I've been all about that. His serious promo here actually delivered. You believed him. He wasn't trying to be a hard ass. He was just angry about the way his career's gone. I said coming out of Heatwave that the titles were exactly what DarkState needed to legitimize themselves. They hit like a 3-run home run here. Lennox and Sugars were the stars again, Saquon more so than Dion. But the other two, they were more than competent in their roles. My thought coming out of it is they absolutely had to win the main event to cement their status, right? So we got Obafemi, Ricky Saints, Hank and Tank against DarkState. There was a 4-way honk from the faces early. Oba also did Ricky's own taunt, which was probably the first time we've seen Femi crack like a huge smile on his face ever. After DarkState dominated for a while, Tank went on a crazy run after a hot tag. Oba blind tagged Ricky as he was in the midst of a run. That led to Femi tossing Sugars into Saints and the two of them brawling out of the ring as a consequence of that. Sugars took honk, but the rest of DarkState prevented further offense. The camera jumped on the apron here, which made for an awful viewing experience, but it was done because Hank said Joe Hendry, which led to Joe appearing as a distraction, allowing Hank and Tank to hit their finisher on Cutler James to get the win. NXT ended with Oba and Ricky continuing to brawl backstage. Extremely hot main event. Super entertaining from start to finish, but man, was this conclusion dumb, and was the booking decision itself rough. I just said it. The setup heading into the match was perfect for DarkState to beat a loaded team and establish themselves even further coming out of their excellent promo package. You even booked it so the only two guys who could legitimately win the match for the faces, Oba and Ricky, were gone from ringside. They battled to the back. They were eliminated. But instead of putting over this heel faction that just had their best promo segment and presentation in the 6 months that they've existed, Hank and Tank, of all people, are able to eliminate DarkState 2-on-4, and a brief Hendry appearance is enough for them to beat the heels, who are just crowned champions as well, by the way. So there's no doubt the crowd loved this, and the way Hendry just appeared playing into his gimmick, it was cool. Sure. But specifically the creative decision here, it was super unfortunate, and as far as I'm concerned, it was stupid. Huge waste. Javon Evans hit the ring in a depressed state, saying he can't put a positive spin on his loss at Heatwave because he was completely confident going in that he would be the youngest NXT champion in history. He apologized to the fans for letting them down, giving them false hope with the 3 count that happened. So they chanted, "We still love you." Evans was explaining how he shut himself away from everyone for a week when suddenly a motorcycle was shown driving into the WWE Performance Center on the Titantron. The Undertaker's gong hit. The crowd went ballistic. And then the music transitioned into Josh Briggs, who walked out dressed partially like the American Badass, getting a sick level of heat. Briggs said Evans is everything he hates about NXT these days. Javon is 21 years old, getting main events and title matches one after another when he doesn't deserve them and Josh does. Briggs said Evans is out there complaining about it when he should have gotten Femi's face and demanded a rematch immediately. Instead, Saints has gone and taken his spot. And Briggs, he keeps getting passed over. He said Javon is good. He's not good enough to beat Ova. Then he got a partial boot, started stomping his ass, partially chokeslammed him into an open steel chair, which was probably better than the alternative of a full chokeslam. I'm not sure the last time I've watched a wrestling segment and actively cackled at a swerve. The timing of the transition from Taker's gong to Briggs' emergence was absolutely perfect. Just long enough to get a huge pop from, the unexpected appearance, but not too long where you realize something is up as a viewer. This was the best acting Javon has performed in his entire WWE career. It was simultaneously the best promo Briggs has cut in multiple years with the company. What started as protest chants from fans turned into legitimate heat here. In fact, I'm not sure there's a man or a woman in NXT right now who gets a stronger heel reaction than Josh Briggs. Extremely well done and a really smart feud given their aspirations, their differences, and the way both can go coming out of it. Andre Chase later fought Briggs. The Chase U students stood up to Briggs backstage, so when the professor came in to separate all of them, they basically suggested he wrestle and got the match made without him even agreeing to it. Ava made Evans promise not to interfere, granting him a match next week if he stayed true to his word. During the match, fans did the Roman Reigns chant, but with the words, "Chase, you can stay, Briggs, go away," which I thought was pretty creative and crazy. Not for a few seconds they did this, but like multiple minutes. Chase ate a boss man slam only to counter a suplex into a stunner with a flying crossbody finisher for a shockingly hot false finish. Briggs ultimately won with a chokeslam and a running boot. Then he attacked the students with a massive chokeslam of Uriah Connors through the announce table. He got crazy height on that. If NXT is not telling a story of these students like pissing off Chase and him like quitting teaching, I'm really not sure I understand the point of Chase reforming or their characters. Neither Connors nor Cale Dixon are likable characters. You don't root for them like you did Thea Hale and Duke Hudson. They're not over in any way. And worst of all, there's no consistency with Chase U. So there's no benefit to them existing as a trio. If anything, this has actually held Chase down from evolving into something else character-wise. It's been inherently flawed from the start. It's only getting worse by the week. And if you want to tell me this is some like take on Gen Z to some degree, I could potentially buy it if they were actually doing that. Instead, these guys are crybabies, but they're also assholes. They're putting their teacher in positions he can't win. He's not looking at them any different because of that. He's just shrugging and accepting it. Is he defeated? Like, does he need motivation? Like, what's happening with these guys? It really, to me, right now, I think Chase U is the worst part of NXT by a mile, which is pretty crazy when maybe it wasn't the best part, but it was among the best parts just a few months ago.
Market zero!
Trick Williams opened hour 2 of NXT, repeating with conviction what he said last week about being the best the brand has ever seen. He said no NXT legends have come to rebut him, either because they know his greatness is the truth or they don't care about NXT anymore. He put over how hard the NXT superstars have worked, how dedicated the NXT fans have been, but then he twisted it, saying, I'll never come back to NXT. As soon as I get called up to Raw or SmackDown, I'm gone. Enter DIY in their classic shirts, getting a huge pop with their original Chrome Hearts theme. DIY took a sarcastic tilt, putting over all the titles they've won in NXT. Then Johnny Gargano went ultra babyface, mentioning all the greats who came through, such as the Demon, the Hugger, etc. Tommaso Ciampa also ripped Trick's glasses off, threw them into the crowd. That was a hot spot. Williams put them over before saying his run in NXT has made all of their accomplishments irrelevant. DIY got physical first, hit meat in the middle, and stood tall at the end. Interesting segment because clearly this is going to result in something at Homecoming. But with it being a 2-on-1 situation, that would mean Trick needs a partner. Now, I guess Wes Lee could be utilized for that. He hasn't been on TV in weeks. That would need to happen immediately. He'd have to be back next week. Either that or Trick could bring in another black and gold talent. Not sure exactly who. Trick did say later that he'd be addressing them again next week, and he alluded to someone coming back from the past. The only other name I could think of individually would be Carmelo Hayes, but that would be a really odd way to rush a repaired relationship, though I suppose it could work as like an entree for them to pair together again when Williams gets called up. You'll remember I said on this show, like when Trick does get called up to the main roster, the way to, I don't want to say salvage Melo because I don't think he needs to be salvaged, but the way to get both of them over simultaneously is to run that angle again. Go Trick Melo gang, the whole deal, make them champions, have them be dominant, all the charisma that they express between each other. And then you do the split again, basically. That's what you do. Regardless, this was a great segment between these three. Another one of those moments where I said to myself, man, if Gargano could cut promos like that on the main roster, the dude could actually be a big-time singles champion like I believed he would be back in the day. Really, why can't we get this DIY on the main roster? Like, what is actually preventing it? Right now, lack of heels on SmackDown, so they need them in that role. Okay, that's fine. But they have never been given the chance to be these characters in full on the main roster. And we do need to see that. Lola Vice got a personal video package about growing up in Little Havana. She talked about growing up as a Miami Latina being different from just being a Latina. And as someone who's been to Cali Ocho in that area a bunch, I can say it was a pretty accurate description and representation. This was just a piece of a multi-part feature on her, but it was well done. It feels like Vice may be getting set up to win the title at No Mercy, but I'll tell all of you that the War Memorial in Fort Lauderdale has to be like 50 miles and an hour away from Cali Ocho. It's like doing a show for someone who's from Stamford, Connecticut in New York City and saying, this is your hometown. It's close. It's not the same. Blake Monroe did a brief Maybelline product placement bit with Ariana Grace, who was speaking with Stax before she walked up. They agreed that Jordan Grace sucks, with Ariana clarifying they are not related. Jordan stormed in, tried to get in her face, but Callie Armstrong, the Evolve Women's Champion, she took exception, grabbing her by the arm. Obviously, that led to a match. Non-title, of course. Jordan got a camel clutch in early. Grace prevented Armstrong's finisher by catching her running with a huge back elbow. Then she hit beast mode for the win. The finish was nearly a disaster because Jordan is super short and Callie is so tall. She almost didn't rotate all the way around. Like, they made this by the skin of their teeth. This told me that especially when she gets called up to the main roster, Jordan needs a secondary pinning finisher because it cannot be that. Monroe tried to attack after the bell. Grace went right at Blake, actually bloodied her in seconds. Officials quickly separated both of them. Grace looked down at the blood pooling in her hand. Vic Joseph said she looked like the woman from hell, twice referring back partially to her AEW character. Okay, multiple parts to this. The backstage segment was actually pretty fun with Blake and Ariana. They could be absolutely insufferable in the best way together as a pairing, like Ariana and Chelsea Green that time. The match set up for Jordan and Callie, that was pretty weak. I'm glad Armstrong keeps getting work with better talent in NXT because she's clearly going to be a big-time superstar. But at the same time, there's a lot of women not getting used already on NXT who should be, and she got beat rather quickly here. I guess that's fine because Jordan's immense experience advantage gives her the edge, but I just found myself wishing that there was more here. I also found myself wishing that the post-match attack was longer before the blood. I'm not sure whether that was planned, but I have to believe it was, given how much Vic hammered home the woman from Hell line. How would you accomplish that with a 30-second attack that doesn't involve blood? So I think she bit on a capsule or popped one in her hand or did something like that. That's just my guess on the situation. But again, this was just a bit too quick to really sink in. I want to see her infuriated, fuming, foaming from the mouth. And really, she was just sitting there like looking kind of angry for a little bit. So I didn't think they knocked this out of the park the way they definitely needed to, if that makes sense. I also feel like they probably should have each gotten a brief in-between feud before going back at it. But to be fair, hate is hate. And if they have plans for a trilogy, let's say, then I guess you got to keep it rolling. I also appreciate how NXT continues to progress Monroe's character. It's quite funny for all the people who complained about her debuting as a face, then becoming a heel, not being the woman from hell version, that they are now adding layers to this gimmick so she can work multiple roles. It's almost like WWE thinks beyond what works immediately, and they realize, hey, we need to build someone up long term. Imagine that. I also think it's funny how people are criticizing Jordan for like losing muscle mass recently. Y'all realize why that's the case, right? She still looks great. She remains extremely talented. If her muscles are a bit smaller, okay, she's still one of the most cut and built women on the entire roster. Calm down. We had Jada Parker against Lash Legend, and just by saying those names, you know what's coming next.
Oh, we got two big meaty men bumping me tonight.
Jada slipped off the top rope, but still landed most of a flying lariat. Lash countered teardrop with a choke, leading to a choke slam. Legend dominated offensively until Parker hit a teardrop. She followed with a Samoan drop, got dragged out of the ring while holding Lash's hair. Legend avoided another Samoan drop, booted Parker ringside before hitting Lash extension into the announce table lid, which had zero visual or audio impact. So she hit it a second time in the middle of the ring clean to get the 1-2-3. Jada attacked as Lash was celebrating down the ramp, dragging her back to ringside, exploding the barricade with Hypnotic. It was a badass look from her in that moment for sure. A fun bit was that NXT put caution tape over that spot for a period of time. I found myself angry when they repaired it mid-show. If you're going to put the caution tape on there, leave it. Make it look cool. Remind us all show that a crazy spot happened here. Don't fix it. That was really annoying to me. It's tough to see Jada like go out like that, but look, Lash is the one being elevated, and you can only do that to one person at a time. Better than how the main roster would have booked the exact same match with the clean finish. It feels like a constant issue in wrestling where moves that should not be done into the announce table are nevertheless performed, and they don't have the impact expected. If you're going to do Lash extension into a table, A, take the damn lid off. B, stand on the steel steps or something. That way, when the body flies into it, the thing breaks. Instead, due to a lack of distance for the drop, I mean, it was like a 6-inch drop. It's like she was gently placed on a softer surface than the ring or the floor. It boggles my mind that people can produce matches and not think this stuff through. Regardless of that, which you can tell, frankly, annoyed me. This front to back was an absolute
banger
to open the show. Ethan Page and Tavian Heights continued arguing backstage in front of Ava, who was ready to make a decision when Page started assuming, what? You're going to make a flag match or something? And then typical Ava, I mean, I really couldn't believe they did the segment this way. She literally goes, well, it wasn't going to be, but now it's a flag match. It's like she's only allowed one original thought in her head per episode, and everything else has to be exactly what she hears the talent say.
No, don't like that.
I actually like Ava overall. I believe she receives unnecessary criticism in this role because people want to shit on her for being a Nepo baby. But her character is written like an absolute pushover dunce. Why even do a flag match when this dude has a title? Put the championship on the line. Tavian Heights should be wrestling other singles performers and winning, upping his resume. Paige can attack him, whatever, and then do a title match on the back end. Why are we just getting the same jingoistic shit about United States and Canada like it's 1996? I don't understand why they're going in this direction. Fatal Influence, Zaruka, and Tizzy were all in Ava's office as she explained that she was pitching a women's tag team title opportunity for NXT. The superstars all argued about who should be number one contenders before Ava announced a triple threat elimination match next week. I love elimination matches, A, and B, this was an original thought. As I said, she gets one per episode. It's refreshing compared to a regular run-of-the-mill triple threat that we get all the time. Hopefully the title match happens in NXT so some star power comes down to the brand. Would obviously make sense to run that at NXT Homecoming in 2 weeks. I could see it being at No Mercy if WWE just wants to continue making me mad and counter-programming my life, but I do assume it's going to happen at Homecoming. Candice LeRae of SmackDown fought Xia Brookside of TNA in the Speed Tournament. Candice hit a Shining Wizard, missed a springboard moonsault, eating a Codebreaker coming back. LeRae then hit a tornado DDT off the ropes, a step-off senton, and a springboard moonsault to win in 2 minutes and 37 seconds. So I have been very negative about this from the second it was announced, and I feel the exact same way as I did before. However, I do want to point out I had a huge positive about the speed deal on Tuesday night, and that is that it looks 1,000 times better in the Performance Center than it did in major arenas. WWE here utilized the LEDs, the video boards, and the lights to actually sell the brand, and they did a color scheme change every minute of the match. It started, I think, green and blue. It went to orange for the second minute, and then it went to red for the end. The final minute, when it was in sudden death territory, it really popped, and it seemed like a concept that, like, okay, in this type of venue, it could work, but it shouldn't be on television, and Sol Ruca certainly shouldn't be defending her title at a premium live event. So my guess is they are purely doing this as a ploy to sell speed to someone other than X, be it Facebook or TikTok or whatever the case might be. I gotta believe they're trying to do something like that, and we're suffering because of it. But again, this just does not belong on television, and it's a waste of time because it's 3 minutes plus entrances plus, commercial breaks, so on. It could be put for some of these other matches that go 3 minutes and have no business being that short. So that was NXT this week. As I said, it was a super entertaining episode of television. It wasn't necessarily one of the best that they've put on this year, and there have been some of those recently, but a lot of stuff was developed. They're building 2 shows simultaneously, Homecoming on TV and No Mercy, again, counter booking my entire life here in South Florida. And I just enjoyed it from start to finish. It's the easiest 2 hours of professional wrestling to watch. It's easier than Raw, easier than SmackDown, frankly, way easier than AEW. Both Dynamite and then Collision, which is basically impossible for the Silver King at this point. So with that said, let's move over to AEW this week. 5 of 11 matches were relevant, which was actually more than I thought when I was putting the list together. But as we go through them, you'll understand how the relevancy is thin for some of them. I also wanted to say off the top, and this is going to kind of factor into what we talk about later, AEW has gotten into this really weird cadence where they're only announcing matches like immediately before the show as opposed to days in advance, which is what they used to do. And they're also really focused on 2 heel factions pretty much doing the exact same thing. And I was thinking to myself, isn't this what everyone criticized WWE under Vince McMahon doing for so long and saying they're going to stop watching the product because they're not doing long-term storytelling, they're not booking stuff well, and it's annoying to them? And Vince was ripping up scripts and doing, remember that? Like it was a story every single week. Yep, 45 minutes before showtime, Vince has ripped up the script for Raw, right? Now, maybe AEW is not ripping up scripts. I doubt Tony Khan is. But why are they announcing, 3/4 of the show the day of? It's extremely odd. And it's going to factor into not just our commentary on the show itself, but the business side that we're going to talk about at the end. So on Collision, Daniel Garcia beat Blake Christian in 6 minutes. Why? No reason whatsoever. Garcia cut a passionate but short promo after the bell, challenging Jon Moxley again. Wheeler Yuta was somehow out to accept it within 5 seconds. He was like standing there. Not even enough time to walk out from the back. On Collision, Gabe Kidd got a promo package saying he tried to take his life when his mom committed him to a psychiatric hospital. He dared Darby Allin to try and kill him, saying he doesn't want a wrestling match, he wants to take his soul. The audio on this was terrible. Kidd's confidence and promo game, though, were super strong. The content for me was a little bit over the top, talking about death and all that like they always do. On Dynamite, Kidd interrupted the show open, calling out Allin, saying they were wrestling in a tiny dump, which was probably not the best thing to admit at the start of a show in front of 916 people on national television. Darby attacked from behind, driving Gabe's neck into the exposed turnbuckle backing, then sticking his arm into the ring post, which was kind of cool. Kidd then started dominating, only to completely take his eye off someone he's actively fighting so he can taunt people. He had a coffin drop ringside. Yuta joined for a 2-on-1, except Allin easily took him out in seconds with a thumbtacked skateboard. Then the rest of the Death Riders entered. Then the lights went out. And Hook slowly walks out to the least menacing music I have ever heard in my entire life. Then the Ops run out right past him. They take out the Riders. Then Willow Nightingale runs out to actually fight Marina Shafir. Tony Schiavone crowed about this being what makes AEW great and unpredictable. How was this either great or unpredictable? These are the same people that have been fighting each other for literal months, except it was one of the rare occasions where Willow decided, oh, I'll help because no other woman will fight Marina. So was this great? Was it unpredictable?
No.
Kid somehow got the upper hand on Allen outside. He tried to cave in his skull with a hammer, missed. Darby was able to throw dirt in his eyes, which he just had laying in the back of a pickup truck. Then he conveniently found a chloroform rag, knocked him out, put him in a body bag, and dragged him behind the truck for whatever, like 500 feet. So either Gabe was buried and written off, or Darby had diverted his attention from Mox to Gabe with the quickness. Either way, this started as something interesting with those two, then quickly became an eye-roll segment once everyone else got involved. It was really rough stuff. Later backstage, Hook confronted Samoa Joe and Powerhouse Hobbs, saying he can fight his own battles. He was mad they replaced him before his body was even cold. Joe admitted that was true because they had an opportunity they had to take, adding that they didn't save him. They were just handling business. Joe said he'd have Hook's back whether he wanted it or not. So on one hand, fair enough, right? Hook should be annoyed that he was replaced and the guy who replaced him became a champion, and they're still champions even though they don't defend the titles and the division isn't really featured on television. But it seriously requires a suspension of disbelief and logic where someone wouldn't understand that a group who was actively fighting the top heels in the company at the time could not wait for months for him to get cleared from a concussion, especially when they had a title match set. Also, why not just tell Hook, we still want you in the Ops, dude. Why does it have to be a 3-man group? Hook can't join them. He's not still a member. So I'm glad they addressed it. It just felt like it could have been a lot tighter and more logical. On Dynamite, Brodito defended their tag team championships, successfully that is, against Yuta and Claudio Castagnoli. Do I have to say it, or do you already know that this pair of challengers has lost not one or two, 6 straight multi-man matches since April without a win as a tag team since they were champions at Dynasty? Not only did they not deserve the title opportunity, there was no build to them getting it. Death Riders distracted and interfered late in the match as it was rocking. The heels hit fastball special for a false finish. Darby came back at this point to attack Mox. Bandito then hit 21 plex to end it. Like I said, hell of a match bell to bell. The Death Rider shit at the end was super formulaic and repetitive. It's funny how people say that about the Vision on Raw. Oh, wow, every show ends with an attack. But they don't have the same complaints about this? Are you kidding me? On Collision, Ricochet led a tape promo on Hurt Syndicate, basically saying that they attacked not so much for MJF, but rather because of the way MVP has teased him by offering him opportunities over the years. MVP similarly led a taped response, saying they put themselves in an unwinnable position. This was unironically the best part of Collision, I'd say by far, and it was the back and forth taped promo style that I heavily dislike. That's how rough the show was, that this was my favorite. Ricochet basically repeated his point on Dynamite, saying it's business for the Syndicate, but personal for them. They took credit for ending their reign, saying they would take their legacy next because they're the future and Syndicate is the past. They demanded a 6-man match at All Out. Pretty damn good here as well. Kudos to Ricochet for stepping up his promo game and figuring everything out. MVP later led a Syndicate promo, saying he used to be a dynamic performer, Ricochet, but now he's a whining hater and a joke. He warned Gates of Agony not to let dude turn their careers into a punchline. He said they don't demand respect, they command respect, and they accepted the challenge. Top tier promo from MVP here. He and Bobby Lashley in particular were rocking their suits. I wanted both of their suits in my closet. That is how sharp they looked. Despite not being into really anything that these 6 were doing prior, for some reason, this whole feud is hitting for me. I'm so happy they're doing it. And I do hope, coming out of it, we have a couple trios who can go after this title, because why the hell not? They're both heels. The Ops are baby faces. They need challengers. Have Hurt Syndicate move from the tag team division to the trios. That works for me. It should work for you as well. On Collision, Josh Alexander and Kyle Fletcher beat Kyle O'Reilly and Tomohiro Ishii. Roderick Strong was angry backstage that O'Reilly was teaming with a conglomeration partner. All O'Reilly had to say back to him was comedy shit. I'll note here that conglomeration, O'Reilly specifically, has been fighting the Don Callis family for 3+ months. All of it without storyline, all of it resulting in absolutely nothing. They're just matching up to match up. One repetitive match after another. So it gets relevancy credit because it's something that has happened many times. But does that really make it relevant? Do you care about it? Like, think about that. On Collision, Mark Briscoe asked Callis why Fletcher hasn't responded to his TNT title challenge. This segment was taped during the daytime, and the graphic on screen said earlier today. Yet Callis responded by saying Fletcher had just won a match that night on Collision, which is obviously impossible unless he's able to manipulate the space-time continuum. This is the sloppiness with AEW that was understandable years ago, but is ridiculous 6 years into the company. Anyway, Callis said Fletcher has got a lot of challengers, a lot on his plate, but he'd let Briscoe wrestle another family member as an eliminator opportunity. The match setup was fine. I'm glad Briscoe's taking a break from MJF before they ultimately go back to it. We unfortunately got a third segment involving Callis promoting an all-star 8-man tag team match that you'll remember includes people who are not involved in the brawl that actually set up the match a week ago. Fletcher said they were focused on adding the AEW championship to their family. He was solid as usual with his promo. On Dynamite, Briscoe cut a promo reiterating what he said on Collision. Callis announced that he would be fighting Konosuke Takeshita on Collision, but Briscoe wanted to fight immediately. So Callis put, guess who? It's one of two options. Lance Archer in the ring. And you know what happened there? Obviously, Archer lost. Woof. With Takeshita having just won the G1 Climax, I cannot imagine Briscoe beats him. So perhaps this is like a more brief departure from MJF than we thought initially. If Briscoe does beat Takeshita, holy hell, they really do not give a shit about New Japan at all. I cannot imagine that's going to happen. So I think Takeshita wins the match. Briscoe goes to the back of the line, and I don't know, they figure out something from there. On Dynamite, Kazuchika Okada backstage agreed that there's tension with Takeshita because he's the top dog in the family, despite Takeshita calling himself the alpha. Then, of course, he called him bitch. Why is Callis not handling this? Okada's promo, by the way, was 15 seconds, and we only saw him for 5 of it because the rest of it was random clips. On Dynamite, Alexander, Fletcher, and the Young Bucks beat, let's hammer that word home, beat Hangman Page, Kenny Omega, and Jet Speed in a 22-minute balls-to-the-wall main event. The big moment in the match was getting Hangman and Kenny against the Bucks. One Buck did buckshot lariat into the other accidentally. Mike Bailey did a really sick avalanche poison rana on Fletcher, as at that point it became impossible to know who was actually legal. The referee literally just stood around pacing, not knowing what to do with himself. Kevin Knight took a bevy of finishers one after another in succession, the last being a brainbuster by Fletcher to end the match. Did Kevin Knight really need to be protected with 8 finishers, or could he maybe have just taken the brainbuster? So on one hand, look, it's important for the Callis family to actually pick up a win as a group. The problem is half the people in the so-called family here are actively not in the family. The Bucks made this whole deal about we're not in your family, but we'll help you and we'll take your help. So this didn't really help the family. It just helped the heels in general. On the other hand, you had your champion and Omega, 2 of the top dudes in your entire company, lose a random 8-man for no good reason since it didn't seem to actively accomplish anything. But don't worry, this wasn't over. The Bucks fought Jet Speed to the back. That allowed the others from the family, but not the whole family, because why would they all be at TV together? They joined Fletcher and Archer in attacking the remaining faces. Hangman got put through an open steel chair with a brainbuster. Then Omega took a chair to his diverticulitis, again, not a thing, before Fletcher delivered a brainbuster off the apron through a table ringside, presumably taking Omega out of action again after he had just come back from being out of action, after he had just come back from being put out of action before that. The only booking I can conjure coming out of this is Hangman and Fletcher for the title at All Out, which would be AEW giving one of its other champions a shot at the big title, something we have seen with consistency and frankly, far too often. My positive take on this segment is the post-match attack was actually extremely well done. It got heat on the Callis family, but their takeover of the show, while the Death Riders continue to basically do the exact same thing, is extremely repetitive. It would be something if they were on different shows. But like 80% of Dynamite was the writers in the family. The other match coming out of this eventually, right, would be Fletcher and Omega. But are you really going to have Kenny drop the international title and then go slumming for the TNT title rather than try to win the unified title back from Okada? So yeah, if you like these groups, I guess you love Dynamite. I'd have at least let the faces won this match before doing the attack. That way Hangman and Omega didn't look completely pathetic. Hangman Fletcher, if that happens, it's going to be an incredible match. But it's not really a selling point main event. And it's interesting that Callis is focused on Fletcher when Okada is the unified champion and Takeshita just won the G1, you know? On Collision, FTR beat two jobbers in 9 minutes, STFU chants during a promo, which basically happened every single time the heels spoke and really became ridiculous in this venue. It was boilerplate stuff with Dax Harwood saying that they would end Edge and Christian's careers and possibly their lives if they didn't calm down. This should probably be a stipulation match of some kind, both to protect the faces wrestling-wise and also to create some additional intrigue. On Dynamite, Adam Copeland entered only to immediately get attacked by FTR. Christian Cage saved, obviously. Dax somehow got busted open, like Callis style, on his bald head. Christian starts brawling with security outside while Copeland is getting double-teamed by FTR. Eventually, a bunch of wrestlers ran out to separate them. One dude legit looked like he was 15 years old. This would have been far more effective if it happened completely backstage with weapons, especially considering it just kind of petered out at the end. FTR hit a spike pile driver on a dude for no reason. One of the jobbers went after Dax. So after the segment ended, Cash Wheeler dressed the dude down backstage, telling him, go find a tag team partner. So we're going to get another jobber tag team match against FTR on Collision. Are you tuning in for that? Is that going to make you watch that show? It's not. This was rough as hell. On Collision, Alex Windsor beat a jobber in 1 minute. Total waste of time. Does AEW want people to watch Collision? Like, what is going on here? Windsor responded to Mercedes Monet's promo after this match, saying Monet is just angry because she made her tap and she knows she can do it again. The promo was decent. It was kind of paint by numbers. On Dynamite, TBS Championship was on the line because why not? Monet retained her title over Windsor. Mercedes went blonde with NWO-style knee pads. She had Alex in an extended statement maker, but once Windsor finally countered, Monet moved her into a fold-over pinning combination. She offered a handshake after the bell. Mercedes flicked her off, so she hit her in the head with the title, and then she put her in statement maker. Then Rio returned from out of the crowd, completely blind, with a coup de grace, and then a dropkick through the ropes. This was Windsor's third title match in 6 weeks, mind you. 3.75 stars B+. And now we have Rio, who has not wrestled for AEW in 15 months and has only had one AEW match in 19 months, seemingly moving into a number one contendership role. I said to myself, let's see how fast she gets that match, figuring she'd win a match on TV and then immediately get booked into the title match at All Out. No. It was announced before the show was over. Let me reiterate this. She hasn't been on AEW television or wrestled a match in 15 months, and she's number one contender for a title held by the most dominant woman in wrestling right now, right? By doing a 5-second blindside run-in at the end of a match.
Are you fucking kidding me?
On Collision, Toni Storm, Mina Shirakawa, and Queen Aminata beat Billy Starks, Julia Hart, and Sky Blue. The heels laid out the faces with Thecla spearing them one by one after the match. I'm trying to think of some analysis to give you here. Maybe this leads to something for Toni, but like, why? What have any of them done to deserve that type of elevation? On Dynamite, Toni Storm cut a tape promo saying she's the most batshit bitch to ever piss in that city. She begged every woman with a pulse to come at her. Why didn't she respond to getting the shit kicked out of her on Collision by a heel group? Did that not bother her? Was that not an example of women in AEW coming at her? Super odd. I saw the usual suspects. This was an incredible promo by Toni. It wasn't. It was just like boilerplate normal stuff she says, and she has no major challenger right now. Like, what's happening? On Dynamite, Chris Statlander pulled off Harley Cameron's mask to reveal cat makeup underneath. She didn't want to name their team. Harley challenged Brodito, obviously funny, but Stat said they would focus on fighting Megan Bayne, Penelope Ford, and the Triangle of Madness. Yuta then approached Stat, saying the Death Riders have her back. Shafir then stared her down And Stat said she can tell their friend that she got their message. At least someone cares about Triangle of Madness beating the shit out of them. But like, what the hell was this? On Collision, Big Bill beat Juice Robinson. This was relevant. It was also terrible. I'm glad Bill won at least. On Collision, Hologram beat Jay Lethal in 10 minutes. Why? No reason. This was Lethal's first AEW TV match in a year. After the bell, there was another algorithm interruption. This time it got overridden by The Clone, spelled C-L-O-N, appearing on screen. This is going to be Hologram's rival from Mexico, who's going to debut basically as the Sin Cara Black to Hologram Sin Cara Blue. I've seen their matches together in Mexico. Pretty damn great. So in AEW, it's going to be pretty damn great too. What does that mean after the feud ends? Where do you go from there? Maybe they have something. We'll see. On Collision, Kip Sabian was arguing with Shayna Wayne that Luchasaurus was late for their meeting. He's a dinosaur. He doesn't need to be on time, okay? He was angry over a black eye and stitches, saying Luchasaurus didn't hold up his end of the bargain in their match. Is she really... They're having this group on screen with the mother leading them without her son, who's dealing with a broken foot. Why not give them an extended break until Nick Wayne is healthy? This was basically nothing. On Collision, Skyflight started a promo segment that, I kid you not, it began with Christopher Daniels handing Layla Gray 5 singles, one after another, like she was a stripper or something like that. It was extremely odd. One of them got mad that the others were happy-go-lucky about winning a couple matches. Why are we doing this? And then lastly, apparently something happened on Ring of Honor where Sammy Guevara is now in LFI, which has to be his 12th faction or team since joining the larger AEW roster. I presume this came on the back of Dustin Rhodes obviously getting injured, and they were champions, so he must have teamed with someone and they lost them. I don't know. It's Ring of Honor. I can't necessarily tell you. They kind of explained it, but they didn't go deep enough for me to fully comprehend like what was happening here other than that Sammy was joining LFI. He seemed pretty confident overall. I liked like the way he cut his promo and the way they looked together kind of worked. But all in all, I was just like confused a little bit about like why this was so relevant. If he's returning to AEW television and they're actually going to be like featured, then cool. And I like Sammy. And you guys remember back in the day, I thought Sammy had the chance to like break out as a legitimate huge star in AEW. That has not happened. That's why I say on this time, look, Silver King is right a lot. I'm not always right. And there's things like Sammy Guevara where I can be wrong. And Johnny Gargano on the main roster, I can definitely be wrong. There's no questions about that. Now, I mentioned here on the show that we were going to have a ratings discussion at the end, and we absolutely are going to do that right now. We'll talk NXT and AEW in this regard. So let me start this off by saying ratings across the board, WWE main roster, NXT, AEW Dynamite, AEW Collision, they've been down for 2 weeks. Labor Day, football season, this is what happens, okay? You get low ratings at the beginning. They try to book the shows better, pick them up a little bit, and they suffer through the end of football season, and then they usually bounce back after the fact. When it comes to NXT, their last 2 weeks have been in the 600s as opposed to the 700s, which is where they had normally been. But 600 is not really that odd of a number. They were that a couple times in July, June, May. They haven't really been consistently in those high 8s and 7s since, the beginning of the year, February, obviously in January, which comes before February. And they were consistently in the 7s too, March, WrestleMania season. But they've been hovering between 6 and 7. So this was not a significant drop for them, although it was low, and the 0.12 demo tied for the lowest of the entire year with the show that was my birthday week. I vividly remember that. I think they went head-to-head with like some MLB All-Star shit. Not the game, but something like that. AEW Collision, we never talk about their ratings, but I mean, I literally have to this week, okay? This week, 195,000 viewers and a 0.04 demo. That's normal night and time. It was against the first week of college football, so clearly major competition. There was huge game that night as well. But I mean, they dropped 86,000 viewers from the prior week. They've been under 300,000 for 3 straight weeks for that show. And they keep moving it, to Thursday, back to Saturday, this time, that time. So it's really tough to find a level of consistency for Collision, but they were regularly in the 400s. And it wasn't that long ago. I'm trying to go through a list here. August 9th, they were 423,000. July 31st, 409. It's been halved in a few weeks, 195,000. 0.04. The demos halved as well. That is horrendous, even against college football. And it just goes to show what I have been talking about for a year-ish, maybe less than a year, 6-8 months, something like that. Collision is an impossible show to watch, not because of when it's on. The vast majority of it is total throwaway. Very little of it actually matters when it comes to what happens on Dynamite and certainly what happens on pay-per-views. And it just feels like they brought in Collision. It was going to be the CM Punk-led show with other people who like him to separate them from the elite. They had a really good concept initially. Once Punk left and they canceled Rampage, Collision's basically 35 minutes of like leftover stuff that didn't make Dynamite, and then an hour 25 of Rampage. That's what it is. It is a terrible show to watch. Every single week, occasionally has a singular good match, and that's it. Now, Dynamite, most weeks, is a damn good show to watch. There's no question about that, okay? High quality wrestling, really exciting stuff. Dynamite had seen its ratings decline as well, regularly. Now, not as significant as what I just explained, because Dynamite basically, since the start of the year, it's only hit 700,000, eclipsed that number twice, once in June and once in August, which again was a month ago. Here is how their ratings have gone the last 4 weeks. 690,000, 565,000, 585,000. Nothing too abnormal, especially with football starting. Makes sense. This week, AEW Dynamite, 472,000 viewers and a 0.11 demo. That is the lowest rating in its normal night end time ever. History of the show. And you have to ask why. There are so many potential reasons. It's difficult to say specifically why. Okay, but what did I talk about at the beginning? They're throwing stuff on television. We give you the relevancy scores every single week. There's huge inconsistencies when it comes to storytelling. There's lacking logic. They are able to generate some extremely strong matches and programs. The build for most of these pay-per-views has been pretty strong, especially the go-home episodes, and the pay-per-views themselves include a lot of good wrestling. But it just feels like on Dynamite, stuff happens to happen. In AEW, I should say, not just Dynamite. It happens to happen. And outside of the occasions where they have really strong angles, like they did for All In specifically, they built that show incredibly well. Once those are done, it just feels like they don't give you a reason to watch the product. They don't say, tune in this week because you're going to get X, Y, and Z. Their stars are regularly not on screen. It was okay when MJF was gone filming Happy Gilmore 2 that he wasn't available. Okay, shit happens. They figured out a way to get him on with some of those taped segments. I didn't necessarily love them, but it worked. But MJF has just disappeared from television since the last pay-per-view. He's gone. Kenny Omega only showed up at the tail end of the build to the Lights Out Steel Cage match for, I think, one appearance with Kota Ibushi. He did not factor into the build to that match at all. He wrestled in that match. He comes back on TV. Now he's gone again. He got written off again. And Swerve is injured. Will Ospreay is now injured. Now, these are things that just happened, obviously. But if those guys are out, you got to put your stars on screen. Why, when you have Adam Copeland, who, old and all, sure, moves the needle at least. Like, people know him, care about him. They chant and cheer for him when he's out there. Why, across an entire week of TV, does he not speak? Like, he didn't speak. He didn't say a word. And he was involved in a 4 to 5 minute pull apart brawl that, again, lacked logic in the way it was constructed. These are inherent problems with the product right now. There were no major competition shows on TV. It was the Challenge and US Open Tennis and a couple other things. This number should be concerning for AEW. Now, it's not concerning because they have a TV deal and they're fine. I don't believe there's a cancellation clause or anything like that in there. So they're going to be getting paid for the next few years, and WBD, they're going to have to suck it up. And we said this at the time that deal went down. It was outsized in terms of the amount of money AEW was getting paid for what Warner Brothers Discovery was getting back. It did not make a shred of sense. But as these numbers continue declining, I mean, that deal looks worse and worse by the day. So I promise you, I'm really not trying to pile on AEW. And yes, there is a portion of the fan base that is watching on HBO Max. There is no question about that. The numbers that you have seen thrown around by you-know-who there is no way in hell they are factually accurate. It's just not possible that a show could go 1 week on cable and then the next week streaming and increase their audience size by 40%. I mean, I've gone over this, buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. We've done deep analysis of what it would mean and how it could happen and so on. There are definitely people watching on HBO Max. Is it 25,000 people, 100,000 people, 150,000 people? I don't know, but it is not 500,000 people a week, because if it was, then AEW grew its audience to that degree. They would not be running 900-seat venues for 2 to 3 weeks at a time. They'd be going back to some large arenas. And yeah, they do, of course, run some large arenas, but they have drastically reduced their venue size, which has been a great decision, mind you, okay? More intimate, louder, the stands look full. It's been a great call, but they wouldn't be doing that if they could sell more tickets and if they had the number of people watching that a lot of speculation has been around, which again, it's just not possible for that to be the case based on everything we have detailed. If that number had increased to a degree of 35%, 40%, whatever number, they wouldn't be running those venues. It's as simple as that. These are the same conversations we would have about WWE. And I'll tell you here, because we don't really talk about ratings on the WWE show, SmackDown, I believe, did its lowest rating, I want to say ever. It was like a 1.1 million and some other stuff. It was directly against football. There were extenuating circumstances, absolutely, but it was really low, and it's been low for the last few weeks. Now, will it pick up? It most likely will. There are definitely reasons for it. There's been a huge decline, not just coming out of Fox, but so on and so forth. Again, same stuff I said with AEW, but SmackDown's not doing well. I will reiterate, because we're talking ratings and we do it so infrequently here, the Raw ratings that you see publicized and the way they're being evaluated statistically by one party decently well, by another terribly, they're just not accurate. And more important than the accuracy, they're not analogous. Okay, so let me just say this on this show, because I don't really ever talk about it, okay? The Raw numbers on Netflix are released by views, meaning how many minutes and hours of the show are watched and how many times the program is loaded onto screens. That's it. It does not account for human beings, eyeballs, households, okay? Whereas Nielsen ratings account for all those things. For a Nielsen rating, if you have 3 people in your house watching AEW Dynamite, that counts as 3. For Raw, if you have 3 people in your house watching Raw, that counts as 1 view. So when you see these numbers and people try to do, I don't even want to call it Steiner math, because it's beyond that. Steiner math looks brilliant. It's Nobel Peace Prize winning Steiner math. And they try to do math on these numbers when they don't know the reality of how many people are watching each view at any given time. You can't accurately count the way Raw is being viewed in comparison to SmackDown, NXT, Dynamite, and Collision. What you can do is compare Raw to itself week over week. You can also compare Raw to other Netflix properties. Raw has been in the top 10 every single week, some weeks higher than others, depending what Netflix debuts. But every single week, it is counted as the one show of Raw against seasons of these other shows. And yet, in the United States, it is in the top 10 every single week. So they can release a full season of, I'm trying to think what show is on Netflix. I'm drawing a freaking blank right now as I'm talking. Department Q. Incredible show, by the way. Please watch Department Q if you have not. But they can release a full season. And Silver King at home can binge the entire thing in 1 week. And that binge gets compared to 2.5 hours of Raw. And it's still in the top 10 every single week. And when you go to your Netflix loading page and you see it number 1, Monday night going into Tuesday, usually 1 or 2 Wednesday and Thursday, and then it trickles down to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 through the end of the week, you realize it is being watched by a shit ton of people consistently through the week. So when it comes to ratings, you got to be honest with yourself and calculate the numbers that you can see in front of you. With Raw, it's almost impossible to know how many individuals are actually watching the program. Same with WWE PLEs. But when it comes to the Nielsen ratings, think of them what you do. We have data, and we have week over week data to compare, and year over year too. And the trend right now for AEW is not good at all. The trend for NXT, it's declined definitely since it debuted on the CW. It is still among the highest viewed shows. It is the highest viewed show weekly on the CW, repetitive show, and they get it 52 weeks a year. So I went way longer than I wanted to talking about ratings here. I did not mean to eclipse an hour on the show, especially given the late hour in which we were taping. But I appreciate all of you sticking with me, listening to my diatribe here at the end. I'm glad I got to say it now. Hopefully, I don't have to say it again for a long time. On the way out of this edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast, I remind you we will be back on Tuesday with our next WWE show. And then same bat time, same bat channel, 1 week from now, we'll be talking NXT and AEW. First, please remember,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well. For $5 a month, $50 for the entire year, you can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover, sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, exclusive news analysis posts every week. Again, that is buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. We're a free show. We're an ad-free show. We would greatly appreciate your financial support. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter, Blue Sky, and YouTube. On Twitter and Blue Sky, you get episode drops, news analysis highlights, all of that good stuff. You can send in questions and comments for the show. We will read them here on the air. YouTube, of course, you can listen to full-length audio episodes, full-length video interviews across the board at Getting Overcast. Lastly, I would not be doing my job if I did not put it into your brains that here at Getting Over,
It's all about Defy.
so head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. All right, big football weekend ahead. Silver King, vintage. We're all in for college, NFL. A lot happening. We'll be back with you on Tuesday. At this point, it is time for the Silver King to sign off and leave you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.